Volvo is among Sweden's leading employers, with employees numbering 41,000 in company-owned plants. Volvo's products were marketed in 120 countries, with 75% of its total production exported mainly to other European countries and the US. The aim of the company is to explore the local practice in construction resources management and develop a construction resources management system to facilitate the management of construction resources, mainly in the building construction. Volvo's efforts involved both employees and management. The management decided to experiment with 5 job enrichment measures: job rotation, management employee councils, small work groups, change implementation, and employee-oriented facilities at its manufacturing facilities. Construction materials used by a company constitute a major cost component in any construction project. The total cost of installed materials or value of materials may be 50% or more of the total cost. As we know, Volvo Group is one of the world's leading manufacturers of trucks, buses, construction equipment, and drive systems for marine and industrial applications. The question that arises here is proper planning, selection, and equipment replacement policies applied for the successful completion of the project of a company? Can the total cost be maintained by using proper resource management? Hello all, and welcome to this lecture on resource management, where we will understand how material, machine, and human resources are managed to increase productivity. After the lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives: understand the basic concepts of resource management, describe the labor requirements and labor productivity, explain site productivity, discuss equipment management, understand material management. Let's start with a brief introduction to resource management. Construction projects contain numerous interdependent and interrelated activities. The fast-changing environments of the present era impose numerous financial, legal, ethical, environmental, and logistic constraints. In general, construction projects are of high value and they employ huge resources of men, materials, and machines. Due to the resource-driven nature of construction management, resource management is really a difficult task. So let's discuss the concept of resource management. The construction resource management planning process is a management framework that helps you to consider and manage the key resource efficiency components for your project across its life cycle.
Human resource management is an essential part of a business's strategic plans for success. An HR manager has a wide variety of responsibilities. A key part of human resource management is to develop and maintain a workforce that is both productive and happy. This may also mean training new staff and even working with current staff to help them achieve career growth, which in turn helps the company meet its goals. An HR manager will also be involved in planning for a company's future and adding to the company's competitive advantage. Reward systems are also the responsibility of a human resources department, including employee compensation, incentives, and benefit packages. And, of course, an HR manager has to be able to effectively address conflicts that may arise between coworkers. In addition to these tasks, the responsibilities of human resources also include worker protection, health and safety of employees, enforcing employee rights, and developing the organizational culture.
Resource management is the process of ensuring that resources are sufficient and efficient for a task. Resources may include anything a business or organization possesses that is used in the process of creating or maintaining business operations. Pre-construction planning. Construction management. Project Quality Plan, or PQP. Identify key process critical items. Produce shop drawings for ease of construction. Planning of authority inspections. Manpower management. Briefing to site supervisor. Briefing to builder or subcontractors. Additional site staff for night shift works. Resource planning. Use of project planning tools to allocate resources. Manage manpower. Balance resource capacity. Plan, schedule, and control complex projects. Allocate best resources and track progress. Importance of resources in construction projects. The crucial factor in successful implementation of a construction project not only depends on the quality and quantity of work, but also largely depends on availability of resources. The time and cost are directly dependent on the availability of resources. The time required may be determined by dividing the productivity associated with the resources used on the activity into the defined quantity of work for the activity. Challenges facing construction companies. Construction organizations are under constant pressure to deliver projects on time, within budget, all in the face of razor-thin profit margins, increased business risk, rising client expectations, escalating insurance rates, and a severe shortage of skilled labor. The measure of the rate at which work is performed is called productivity. It's a ratio of production output to what is required to produce it. The measure of productivity is defined as a total output per one unit of a total input.
Productivity is on the minds of many, but instead of downloading the latest time management app or forcing yourself to stay at work for hours on end, how can we use science to crack open the potential of our minds? Is there a secret to being productive? The first thing to come to terms with is that your willpower is simply not enough. In fact, some studies suggest that willpower is an exhaustible source that can be entirely used up. This is a concept known as ego depletion. So instead of convincing yourself to simply try harder, a more methodical approach is suggested. The first step: get started. It may seem obvious, but studies have shown starting a project to be the biggest barrier to productivity. Before starting, our brain visualizes the hardest parts to come and instead tries to simulate real work by focusing on small, mindless tasks. Luckily, there's a construct of the mind known as the Zeigarnik effect, which compels humans to finish a task that they've already started. The Zeigarnik effect shows that when we don't finish a task, we experience discomfort and intrusive thoughts about it. So get started now. What about time management? Shockingly, when we look at some of the most elite musicians in the world, we find that they aren't necessarily practicing more, but instead more deliberately. This is because they spend more time focused on the hardest task and focus their energy in packets. Instead of diluting their effort over the entire day, they have periods of intense work followed by breaks. Not relying on willpower, they rely on habit and disciplined scheduling. Studies have found that the most elite violinists in the world generally follow a 90-minute work regime with a 15 to 20-minute break afterwards. Instead of trying to maintain energy throughout the entire day, breaking it down into sessions with planned relaxation is most effective. But how can you develop the discipline to follow this routine? One key component is giving yourself a deadline. Write it down, mark it in your calendar, and you'll be much more likely to complete your task. On top of this, create something called an accountability chart to document your progress. In one column, write the time span, and in the other, the activities you accomplished during this time. Similar to those on a diet who document their food intake, writing down your progress allows you to realistically evaluate your work as opposed to inaccurately assuming what you've done. Furthermore, tracking your progress helps to avoid small, mindless work. And finally, stop multitasking. While it may feel like you're accomplishing more, studies show that multitaskers are much less productive. Instead, try and make a list at night of what you want to accomplish tomorrow. This way, you hit the ground running with your action plan and avoid trying to complete multiple activities at once. While you're at it, split up your large tasks into smaller bite-sized ones. Your brain will find these less daunting, and it will make the starting process easier. With a clear goal and action plan in mind, your productivity levels can soar to new heights.
Labor productivity. Labor productivity is a ratio of output to input that can be used to measure economic growth, technical progress, and worker efficiency. It's determined by taking a measurable output. Labor impacts on construction planning. The American Association of Cost Engineers defines productivity as a relative measure of labor efficiency, either good or bad, when compared to an established base or norm. Factors affecting labor productivity. There are many factors that affect the productivity of labor in construction. These are generally set forth in publications or manuals made available through associations like the Mechanical Contractors Association of America and other organizations. Labor factors. Some of the most recognized factors affecting labor productivity in industry are overtime, scheduling of extended work days or weeks exceeding a standard 8-hour workday or 40-hour work week, lowers work output and efficiency through physical fatigue and poor mental attitude. Morale and attitude. Spirit of workers is based on willingness, confidence, discipline, and cheerfulness to perform work or tasks that can be lowered due to a variety of issues, including increased conflicts, disputes, excessive hazards, overtime, over-inspection, multiple contract changes, disruption of work rhythm, poor site conditions, absenteeism, unkempt workspace, and so on. Fatigue. Fatigue can be caused by prolonged or unusual physical exertion. Stacking of trades. This occurs when operations take place within physically limited space with other contractors, resulting in congestion of personnel, inability to use or locate tools conveniently, increased loss of tools, additional safety hazards, increased visitors, and prevention of crew size optimum. Joint occupancy. This occurs when work is scheduled utilizing the same facility or work area that must be shared or occupied by more than one craft and not anticipated in the original bid or plan. Beneficial occupancy. This is a result of working over, around, or in close proximity to other crafts, owner's personnel, or production equipment, which may cause noise limitations, dust, or other hazardous risks. This may also prevent or cause access restrictions. Concurrent operations. This is the effect of adding operations to any sequence of operations that has already been planned, without a gradual and controlled implementation of additional operations. Absenteeism and turnover. There is a great deal of time and money lost associated with high turnover and absenteeism on projects. Construction projects in certain areas with low manpower and high demand for labor will usually be more impacted than others. Mobilize, demobilize. This relates to moving resources on and moving off to projects as a result from changes or delays, causing work disruptions. Productivity may drop during these periods as time is lost when crews move from one area of work assignment to another. Errors and omissions. Increases in errors and omissions impact on labor productivity because changes are then usually performed on a crash basis, out of sequence, cause dilution of supervision, or any other negative impacts. Start-stop. This results from a work stoppage or suspension of work, which may cause a break in the schedule, usually triggering a start-stop of work activity. Stop-starts can have an impact on productivity and cost of a project. Severity of inefficiencies. The severity of the factors on construction crew productivity can vary according to the location, cause, region, duration, and other factors contributing to the severity of the factor. Severity of extended inefficiencies. Inefficiencies impact labor productivity, but can also intensify if continued for prolonged periods. Using overtime as an example, the impact on productivity dramatically increases each week if no break occurs. Manage labor factors with planning tools. It's a fact that known factors impact labor in construction exist. Good work planning will help identify and quantify them up front in the estimate and the work packages. Let's now talk about site productivity. One of the major setbacks for any construction project is a loss of productivity that results in delays and loss of funds. And yet this type of occurrence is largely considered par for the course on most building sites. A dependable foreman. One cannot just leave a construction crew to police their own activities. Like any job, a manager is needed on site to ensure that work is progressing on schedule. Incentives. Employees who are paid well and have a stake in the completion of the structure may be more likely to give it their all. Training. In some cases, both quality of work and productivity can be gained by putting up the money to ensure that supervisors are properly trained. Planning. The most common cause of stoppage in construction is often due to improper planning. Whether necessary equipment is unavailable, materials are in transit, or there simply are not enough people working to ensure that a project is completed on schedule, poor planning is likely the root of the problem. Security. Theft at construction sites is fairly common, especially when materials are left unguarded and out in the open. Instead of setting up a fence that anyone with 4 usable limbs can bypass, hire a security firm to provide a night guard. The primary purpose of having an equipment maintenance system is to ensure the safety of clients and careers during use by making sure all moving and handling equipment is fit for use and kept in efficient working order. Heavy equipment management. Heavy equipment management is a type of business activity that's concerned with the overall selection, maintenance, and use of any type of heavy equipment or machinery. This includes various types of equipment used in construction, in factories, and even in tasks such as road building, demolition, and commercial farming. Construction waste management. Construction waste management is an area of the waste management field which is focused on waste associated with construction, including waste from new building sites, home renovations, and demolition of existing structures. Material management. Materials management is a process for planning, executing, and controlling field and office activities in construction. The goal of materials management is to ensure that construction materials are available at their point of use when needed. Objectives of materials management. Efficient materials planning, buying or purchasing, procuring and receiving, storing and inventory control, supply and distribution of materials, quality assurance, good supplier and customer relationship, improve departmental efficiency. Functions of materials management. In order to fulfill the objectives of materials management to meet the basic objectives and goals, The functions of materials management are also categorized as primary and secondary functions. Primary functions. To meet the primary objectives, the primary functions of the materials management are Materials Requirements Planning, or MRP, Purchasing, Inventory Planning and Control, Ascertaining and maintaining the flow and supply of materials. Secondary functions of materials. Standardization and simplification. Make and buy decisions. Coding and classification of materials. Forecasting and planning. Procurement planning. Procurement planning is the process of deciding what to buy, when, and from what source. During the procurement planning process, the procurement method is assigned and the expectations for fulfillment of procurement requirements are determined. Procurement planning is important because it helps to decide what to buy, when, and from what sources. It allows planners to determine if expectations are realistic. Did you know the construction industry is composed of 5 sectors: residential, commercial, heavy and civil, industrial, and environmental? Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. The fast-changing environments of the present era impose numerous financial, legal, ethical, environmental, and logistic constraints. They interact technically, economically, and socially within the environment, as well as with other organizations, structures, and systems. The construction manager develops a plan of action for directing and controlling resources of workers, machines, and materials in a coordinated and timely manner in order to deliver a project within the frame of limited funding and time. A resource is an entity that contributes to the accomplishment of project activities such as manpower, material, money, equipment, time, or space. Resource management is the process of ensuring that resources are sufficient and efficient for a task. In construction, the output is usually expressed in weight, length, or volume, and the input resource is usually in cost of labor or man-hours.